welcome as folks come on in. As is usual, we'll get everyone on board and in the meeting, and then we'll begin. We'll give it just another minute or two, and then we'll be all set. All right, it looks like we haven't, that looks like we have everyone in, or there haven't been any new additions in a while. So I will begin by calling this business meeting of South Whidbey School District School Board to order. We will start by me handing it over to Marnie Jackson.
Thank you, Brooke. South Whidbey School District would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral homelands, originally known as Chocoliche, in the Schutzid of the coastal Salish peoples, on the lands of the Lower Skagit, Tulalip, Swinomish, Snohomish, Stillaguamish, and Suquamish, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial. They have hunted, fished, and gathered here and have taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty and their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and the water. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude to the Indigenous people of this territory for their enduring care and protection of the land which we currently occupy and share through the Treaty of Point Elliott, signed by 82 tribes in Mukilteo on January 22nd, 1855.
Thank you, Marnie. As is our usual for our virtual meetings, we will be taking public comment via the Q&A function. If you have public comment, you may certainly begin typing it now. Once we get to the public comment, myself or one of the other members of the leadership team will read the comments. It is important to note that as these board meetings are meetings in public, rather than meetings with the public, we will be focusing on receiving input and opinions and thoughts rather than responding to them directly. We may respond to one or two, but in general, we will listen, we will hear, we will weigh in our minds the opinions shared with us. If you have specific questions, please contact us via email, because then we can actually look up the correct answers and necessary data to those questions and get a proper response back to you. And if you do email us, please email us at the proper point in the chain of command. For instance, the school board can't do much about something that happens in a particular classroom unless it's been escalated through the chain of command. If it's something in a classroom, please contact that teacher. If it's something in a building, please contact that principal. If it's something district-wide, please contact the superintendent. And if it's something regarding policy, budget, or the superintendent's conduct, please contact the school board. Again, please use Q&A. We will read all of the comments that we can unless we get wildly over time. I don't expect that we'll want to read more than about 45 minutes of comments if it gets that long. Otherwise, until it gets about that long, I will read comments until there are no more comments. Next, we'll move on to the agenda and the minutes. They are attached to the minutes from the last several meetings are attached to the agenda for this meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda and minutes as presented?
Move to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to be had on this topic? Okay. There's been no discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes and agenda as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. The agenda and minutes have been approved as presented. Next, we move on to the consent agenda, which is, as usual, several regular items that have been bound together in a single point on the agenda so we can move through them quickly. Do I have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion of any of the topics on the consent agenda? Hearing no comments on that. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The consent agenda has been approved. We will next move on to presentations, which is on our policy 2151, the interscholastic activities report. Mr. Lagerstad.
Hello. Well, I've been an AD for about 10 years, and we've had a lot of special seasons, and specifically here at South Woodby, and I've never been more proud of the season that we just finished and the year that we just finished. I'm proud of our coaches, of our student athletes, of our staff, administration. It's been an amazing year. First off, I'd like to really thank the support that we got from the school board, and specifically Dr. Mocha. You know, where we were in September and August and the changes that we went through with COVID and the guidelines, and with Dr. Mocha, we were working with 4 and 5 and 6 different agencies at a time that weren't always on the same page. And I just really appreciate the communication that we had and the support we had. And also with the community. The reality is that a lot of our opportunities in athletics was determined by the numbers in our community. And it was the diligence and commitment of our community to follow the guidelines and protect each other that allowed a lot of our opportunities that other districts and schools didn't get. With that, I'm going to read what the report that I have put together. And here are the numbers of the participants for South Woodby High School in recognized Washington interscholastic athletic activities sports, and activities for the 2020-2021 year. This year's participation numbers cannot be placed in any relevant context. The sports seasons occurred during a global pandemic outside of the normal seasonal times of the year, and other extracurricular activities were restricted to Zoom. Comparisons with other districts can be incomplete due to various COVID guidelines established by school, district, league, or even region. The numbers that, when numbers dropped in a sport, in a particular sport, the conversations that I had with athletes generally were they had taken a job at some point as they waited for the seasons to begin. Our first season didn't start until end of February. And at that point, they felt like it was more important for them and or their families for them to continue to work. That was kind of the most common reason for those athletes that did not come back and compete this year. Even during the pandemic, Falcon participation remains impressive. All of our sports were offered to compete in this year. Of our 435 total enrollment, we had 382 total participating in 19 activities, with 210 students participating in one sport and 172 students participating in 2 or more sports. These numbers are even more amazing when compared to our last full years of sports participation. In 2018-19, with a similar enrollment, we had 142 students participating in one sport and 254 participating in 2 or more, a little less in one, a little more in multiple sports. South Whidbey Middle School did not offer interscholastic activities this year. All schools in our Cascade Middle School League shut down their sports teams this year. However, South Whidbey Middle School offered intramurals that allowed the Cougars to participate in normal activities and benefit from the powerful, positive, socio-emotional experience of participation. Thanks to our amazing coaches and middle school staff, we offered cross country, flag football, volleyball, basketball, and track over 3 5-week seasons. In a normal year, the big athletic news would have been our participation in the new 14-team 1A Emerald Sound Conference. Working with a dedicated group of coaches, ADs, and administrators, the Emerald Sound Conference was able to offer 3 7-week seasons, encompassing all of our sports. Unlike many leagues, for most sports, we were able to offer some form of postseason playoff scenarios to give a more normal feel to the end of the season. The Falcons were impressive on the field of play, culminating with conference championships in boys and girls cross country. This was the boys' 3rd consecutive team championship. In a virtual state competition organized by the State Cross Country Coaches Association, the Falcon boys finished 1st in a state competition and the girls 2nd. Anytime you win a state championship, it is very special. However, this is truly remarkable achievement born from complete dedication and commitment to their sport during the pandemic. Falcon individual athletes were recognized with 42 athletes named to the 1st or 2nd team all conference, including conference champions in girls tennis doubles, Ellie Thompson and Pearl Buck, girls cross country, Kaya Schwager Richmond, and track, Kaya Schwager Richmond, Lenice Gonzalez, and Cooper Ullman. These are remarkable numbers and achievements in a highly competitive 1A team league. Our athletic programs are led by truly remarkable human beings. During a pandemic, many of these coaches basically coached year-round with all the starts and stops of trying to move forward athletic seasons during a pandemic. The WIA and our state governing bodies understood the importance of athletics as a physical, emotional, and psychological intervention to our kids' lives, allowing coaches to coach their teams out of season. The South Whidbey coaches have always understood this concept and were right there to step up and fill their role for months, coaching out of season, taking time from their own families. Saving lives and calling them heroes is not hyperbole. Is it any wonder that of the 17 athletic teams in our league, 5 of our coaches were recognized with Coach of the Year honors. Tradition never graduates. Even during a pandemic, our tradition of excellence in the classroom for our Falcon athletes continued to shine also. We had 16 of our 17 teams recognized by the WIAA for their academic excellence. These awards are based on current team GPAs. As always, these academic awards are reflective of the commitment and dedication to academics from our students, teachers, parents, and coaches. As we're moving forward, our athletic plans anticipate a return close to normal. But if we are asked to make adjustments along the way, we now know in Falconville we can succeed. Overall, our Falcon and Cougar athletes continue to excel on the field and in the classroom. Our coaches are dedicated to their athletes and programs, and administratively, we seek to improve the quality of the experience, guided by an education through athletics philosophy.
Thank you, Mr. Lagerstedt. That's fantastic news. I want to share my congratulations to the coaches. Congratulations and thanks to the coaches who dedicated so much time, to the students who put in the effort there every part of the season that was not their normal season, to the tech gurus who brought streaming games home to parents who couldn't watch in person, to myself here at home who didn't want to add another vector myself, to you also for your leadership and guidance in this. I am so proud and so happy that we were able to offer this experience to these students who lost so much this year.
Thank you, Brooke.
Paul, I have a question for you. Could you explain how the WIAA, our conference, and of course, even our school district, how it all relates to our gender inclusive policy with sports? And that policy is 3211, just so the general public has an understanding of that policy.
Could you speak to that policy? What exactly gender inclusive as far as in? I'm not sure what you're asking.
So that everybody understands as far as where the WIAA is on a statewide level, where the conference is on a conference level, and of course where we are as a school district in regards to the policy in being gender inclusive with our policy 3211.
Could you talk about what policy 3211 is? I don't have it in front of me.
So
Yeah,
I just
is our gender inclusive school policy, which includes sports. So if you want to get a little bit more detailed, I guess we could say somebody who identifies as a female and they compete in cross country female sports or volleyball or anything like that, just so that the general public has a good understanding of how that relates to our school district, our conference, and in the state of Washington.
Well, generally, each year I fill out a Title IX evaluation form, and basically I also turn in numbers to the state for who we have specifically turning out gender-wise for each sport. And we need to show a certain balance between the number of girls and boys, and that are turning out individually, and also we need to show a balance of opportunity for both girls and boys to turn out, and that is monitored by the state level, not necessarily by our conference. Obviously, our conference makes a difference because if we want to offer more opportunities to compete in a sport, we've got to have some place or some teams to compete against. So we are monitored both on a team level for opportunities and individual level as far as sheer numbers of boys and girls turning out.
Oh, I'm
Can
not
I?
sure if this is what Damien's referring to, but the WIAA came out with a statement on June 1st that went to all districts. So Paul, I know you received that email, as did Damien. So their statement is, together we will make Washington State the most inclusive place for youth sports participation in the country. And they provided a gender diverse inclusivity toolkit. And the gender inclusive policy that the board approved indicates that students will participate in the sport in the gender in which they identify. And Paul is talking about Title IX, but Andrea, I don't want to interrupt you. You are much more adept at policy.
And I also just want to add that the policy, I pulled it up here because, you know, as much as I know these policies, I don't have them memorized on the fly. So I had to look it up. And really what this policy
in advance when we're going to have to answer questions from board members, it's more helpful to know in advance.
So this policy in particular talks about just the importance of inclusive approach towards transgender and gender expressive students in regards to key terms, communication, use of names and pronouns, student records, confidentiality around their health and education, restroom and locker use, accessibility, sports and physical education, dress codes, and other school activities in order to provide them with an equal opportunity. And I recognize, Damien, the reason why you're asking for this, but honestly, when I look at this, it takes me back to when I was in school and I played football on the boys team. And this policy here is something that would have allowed me to do that. And people made accommodations for me on away games when I needed to change in locker rooms, and people made accommodations for me in terms of my gear and stuff that I needed. And it was the team embracing me as a female lineman on the team and letting me play. And I think that that's really what this policy speaks to.
Thank you, Andrea. And I'm sorry, Joe, Dr. Moshe, I just wanted to.
The WIAA information on transgender sports and activity participation, and indicating that as a state, we don't discriminate. So.
And I just wanted to add that in mid-June, there was also a decision at the federal level that the Department of Education did confirm that transgender students are protected under Title IX. So this inclusive policy in our district aligns well with the U.S. Department of Education guidelines. And I'm curious whether there's in future an opportunity to be more explicit in our policies. I'm sorry, not in our policies, but in our procedures to specifically address what a gender non-binary or gender fluid student might, how they might best be accommodated with the sports opportunities that are most appropriate.
I know that, oh, sorry, Andrea.
No, go ahead, Paul.
I know that kind of like Andrea, we had 2 years ago, we had a female play a football season for the Falcons. And I know that she had a good experience. The transgender issue, I know the WIA has a policy in place now on what the process is for a transgender student, and how they would be identified and how they would go through a process for competing in a sport. It is pretty specific, and it is in the WIA handbook, and it's fairly detailed. I know that the WIA is continuing to work on refining that and clarifying it. It is, it's become, certainly I think in the last year or two, it's become more of a topic of interest. And so the WIA is responding to our culture and our society, and they're working on refining and working on that. So,
oh, go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm done.
And I just want to amplify what people are saying about, this is working towards a protected class of individuals. And I also want to add that from my perspective and from my experience, this really in practice doesn't look any different than what we've already been doing. I played football on the boys team. I can't believe that it's almost this long, but 20 years ago. And people were making those accommodations then. And I played multiple years and I played first string, and you know, I was a very welcomed member on that team, largely because I was taller than and stronger than most of the boys on the team up until about sophomore year. And that was just how people supported it. And I think that it's just important for people of any set to just know that our policy is in efforts of helping people do whatever sports and activities they want to do, and we want to make it comfortable for them.
Does that address your question, Damien? Did that answer?
Yeah, no, well, my question was really for the general public so that they understand what's going on as far as the WIAA, our conference, since we changed conferences and within our school district and our own policy. I didn't think that that was catching anybody off guard. It's something that we, for the most part, all know. So, but that's us, not the general public.
Can I just offer a general expression of gratitude for the program and an observation that what I've witnessed is that students who have not traditionally viewed themselves as athletes embraced opportunities to get involved in a sport after the disruption of COVID. And for some, I think it was a very good confidence building social opportunity after a long period of isolation. So I just want to express gratitude about the accessibility of our sports program to those who haven't traditionally tried out and how important that was in the lives of some students this year.
Agreed.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, thoughts for Mr. Legstad? Thank you very much for joining us and sharing that. As we go into public comment, I realize that I have been remiss in part of my instructions for public comment. I did not remind people that all public comments must be accompanied by your first and last name and your general location. That can be Freeland, Clinton, Langley, Coopville, Oak Harbor, wherever it is you're at. Doesn't have to be your actual address, but all comments must be accompanied by that information or they will not be read. I have two comments that came in via email that were requested for me to read that I'll start with to give more people time to comment or to provide that information with their comments if they have not previously. And then we'll get on. I see we have a bunch of comments stacking up, and that's fantastic that we have the opportunity to hear from those people.
Brooke, do you mind if I ask a clarifying question real quick?
Certainly.
So on our business meeting agendas, we have approval of the consent agendas, presentations, public comment, and then we move into unfinished and new business.
Mhm.
Will you be reading public comments beyond their section on the agenda?
No. We need to move on to our business when we are done with the comments we have, or 45 minutes, whichever comes first, just so that we can actually get to this. I also failed to mention at the beginning of the meeting that we have an executive session following this business meeting to review performance of a public employee and to review negotiations. So I'm putting that notice in here. It'll come again at the end of the meeting. And I apologize for that. But yes, thank you, Andrea. We will do public comments and then we'll finish the public comment period. And then we'll move on to our unfinished and new business and the rest of the business meeting. I will now move on to the comments that came in via email. First, Morgan Cooper from Langley writes, "Dear Superintendent Joe Moshe and school board members, where to begin? We are a community and the school belongs to all of us. All voices collectively should be heard and the board should be nonpartisan when using their listening and representation skills as you carry our voices to the table to be heard. Right now, there are teachers, families, and children who do not agree with the new sex education requirements put out by this state or critical race theory and its numerous names and packaging. Community members are reluctant to speak up because of possible negative backlash. There are kids who won't say anything for fear they will be outed on Facebook, ridiculed, screenshot, and shamed. That is bullying, so I'm wondering why this is being allowed. Additionally, it is being allowed and even encouraged to attack those who held a protest rally at the school because they hold a different opinion. When you allow one voice to take over another and do not find a way to hear all voices, we are moving precariously closer to the edge of disaster. You cannot continue to disregard the community you serve and then wonder why parents come out and protest what's going on at Southerby when they have every right to do so. They are simply responding to the lack of engagement by the superintendent and school board. At some point, you're going to have to find a way to listen and build some sort of bridge and correct the course this is having in our community. I want to remind us that it is our differences that are beautiful. Life would be so boring if we all looked the same. Even the Earth's landscape is diverse, and that is what is so fantastic about it. The sky changes by the minute. Your strengths are not mine, but together we are stronger, not because we are the same, but because we respect our differences. Energy is both positive and negative to make one change. This lesson is throughout the universe. Since I am not allowed to read my own statement because we're still holding these meetings via Zoom rather than in person, it may lack the heart and spirit with which it was written, which is, we must make an effort to work together. It may fall short of its mark, and that is to caution us all to stop and listen to one another and to find a way to move forward as a community. We must change our perspective quickly and hold ourselves accountable to the community we serve. Respectfully, Morgan Cooper Langley. Thank you for the comments, and yes, thank you for your comments. I agree that the First Amendment rights to speak out are very important. The next one comes from Patricia Coffey of Langley, and she writes, "My name is Patricia Coffey and I live in Langley, Washington. I would like to raise my concern regarding the recent privacy breach related to an unauthorized distribution of a recording of a Southerby High School class to social media websites. As I'm sure you all know, posting of the recording was a violation of both school and district policy. I discussed the issue with Mr. Patton, principal of Southerby High School, on March 12, 2021, and he confirmed that a portion of Mr. Eager's second period class in first semester of this school year was recorded in violation of school and district policy. He reported that my daughter's voice was able to be heard in the recording, stated that he, D. Trump, actually called them Proud Boys to action. I am requesting that the person or persons responsible for these unauthorized acts, recording the Zoom class, distributing the recording, posting the recording to social media accounts, be held accountable. I challenge the school board to identify and reprimand the person or persons involved in this inappropriate behavior. I also challenge the school board to think seriously about the Southerby School District's student learning goal of having all schools be welcoming, safe, and supportive places with consistent school-wide expectations that are where all are respected. In my view, actions taken by those associated with the Southerby School District should be supportive and respectful and abide by current policy. Behavior related to the privacy breach in question does none of this. It is of the utmost importance to address this immediately, as it has come to my attention that the person or persons responsible for this unauthorized act may be associated with a school board member." That is Patricia Coffey of Langley. Thank you, Patricia, for sharing your opinions and thoughts. I agree that it is critically important that we do everything we can to make our schools safe and supportive learning environments. In regards to that one, since that came in via email, I was able to forward that along to Dr. Moshe to respond as to what the district has done in regards to that. And that will be responded to via email. I'm looking through these now. I've got, first one I have is a couple of comments from Margaret King in Clinton. Black Lives Matter Incorporated is a global political organization. Federally funded schools are required to be politically neutral. Why does Southerby School Board support the BLM Incorporated banner at the school? Will the board approve of banners to those who have differing political opinions? What role did teachers and other administrators have in the student protests on June 11th? Will the school board confirm that parents and other property taxpayers should have the right to review and approve the curriculum? Thank you, Margaret, for your comments. This is not going to turn into a question and answer period. If you do have those questions that you'd like to have answered, please email us. I will note that though parents have a part in approving the curriculum, that is not an individual parent's right or responsibility, but they do have the right to review it. It is my understanding. Dr. Moshe, can you correct me on that?
Yeah, policy that the board has in place regarding curriculum is that there's an opportunity to review, but ultimately the board approves curriculum.
Yes, thank you. I've got a couple of comments here that do not have full names or, there we go, Sarah McDougall of Freeland. I'm attending tonight's meeting to say how proud I am of the United Student Leaders and of Southerby School District's response to the negative pressure from some community members regarding the ethnic studies and environmental science courses. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. I think that whatever we think of both sides of the protest and counter protest, we can be very proud that it was an opportunity for people to air their opinions in a peaceful manner, and that the organizing that the students did, which is what I'm familiar with, and I'm sure the original protest as well, was exemplary, the organization portion. Let's see here. Sunny Sides from Clinton. I personally know several students who don't want to participate because of masks. I'm assuming that's in regards to sports. Thank you for sharing that. Aaron Rodriguez, sorry, my mouth is dry. Aaron Rodriguez of Langley. Thank you for the wonderful graduation ceremony, and thank you for supporting the students during the day of protests leading up to the graduation. Graduation was surrounded by some very disgraceful behavior by some of our community members. Please tell us when the Black Lives Matter banner will be replaced in front of the school. Was the banner removed by the school, or was it stolen by a community member? Do you know who removed the banner? This is another one where we're not going to respond directly to a lot of this, but thank you, Aaron, for sharing. Oh, we have one other comment from Aaron, so I'll include it here. Thank you for supporting transgender and non-binary students in their athletic pursuits. We will not allow Southwood Mead to begin to discriminate against students. Let's see here. The Black Lives Matter banner was not removed by the school. It will be replaced. I'll just note that here as I move on. I have several comments from a person who does not include their full name or location, so I won't. I will not read those at this time. I do have one from Lorinda Newton in Clinton. The video of Mr. Eager was not posted by someone connected to the board. Thank you for sharing that information. We have 3 comments here by user Jacob, who does not share his full name or location. Jacob, if you'd like to share that information, I will read the comments. I'll wait a little while longer to see if there are any more comments that are going to come in, or if Jacob will share that information with us. I do want to thank everyone for sharing your opinions. I know that it can be difficult to share your opinions and not see the change that you want to see, no matter where you are in the political spectrum. I understand that frustration and have felt it myself numerous times in numerous circles. I do want to emphasize that it is possible to listen and hear without taking the action that is requested, just on a general level, not in regards to any specific comment. Okay, here we go. Jacob Johnson, I'm in Oak Harbor. He said, I'm going to read all of his comments here. Damien Green made such a good point. Thank you, Damien, for addressing this. Everyone needs to really listen to what he's saying. It doesn't make sense for girls to play against boys in sports. By nature of how boys and girls are biologically made, girls are at an unfair advantage physically to participate against boys in sports, regardless of if they want to be boys or girls or call themselves he or she or it or we or they or whatever. How a person chooses to identify himself or herself has nothing to do with how she is physically created and physical strengths. Society needs to go back to accepting humans as they are created by our creator. This has nothing to do with your perspective or your personal experiences. This has everything to do with reality. I am wondering who organized the student protest and why kids were spending their day in school making signs and learning chants instead of education. I understand there were many students who did not even know why they were there. They were there because they were told to, and that was it. I'm going to address, first of all, Jacob, thank you for sharing your opinion. We do need to, it is valuable for us to hear from people wherever they are in the community, whether it's the Southwood East School District community or beyond. So thank you for that. I do want to address one point. Neither the protest nor the counter protest that took place the Friday before graduation, neither of those were organized by any member of the district, staff, administration, school board, anything like that, at least to my knowledge. original protest was certainly organized by community members, and the counter protest was organized by students. Patricia Coffey in Langley, I would like to suggest that the community be supportive of our excellent professional educators who are highly qualified to select appropriate curriculum for public school students. Thank you, Patricia, for sharing that opinion. I tend to agree with it, although that is neither here nor there. Kathy Warren Clinton, today's transgender issues are not about accommodations for girls who want to play football. These new rules are especially addressing boys who identify as girls and those boys competing against girls in girls' sports. No matter how a child identifies, boys should not be directly competing against girls. Thank you for sharing that. I will note one thing, that South Willoughby School District policy is that we treat students as the gender that they identify as. This is not boys joining girls' sports. This is girls being allowed to participate in girls' sports. That is a matter of policy in the district at this point, that we address and identify, that we address and treat students as the gender that they identify. We do have some questions and comments that are coming in without names or locations again. Okay, Stina Wenzek of Clinton. Is it appropriate for school board members to attend the counter protest? Because I believe Marnie Jackson attended the protest. I won't speak for other board members, but I will speak for myself. And thank you, Stina, for asking. I don't want to get into a discussion or debate, but I will say that the board members are members of the public as well. And as private citizens and members of the public, we are allowed to exercise our First Amendment rights.
And may I just invite Stina to be in touch with me via email if she would like to understand more about my participation. I was indeed at the counter protest to celebrate our graduates and to support student voice. So I did participate in that celebration. Thank you.
And I was as well, and likewise invite communication via email on that if you'd like to, Stina.
Likewise for me as well. I was supporting my daughter who is graduating from the class of 2021 and supporting Student Voice. So you're welcome to email me as well. Thank you.
We have another one from Aaron Rodriguez in Langley. The South Willoughby community supports transgender and non-binary students in all their pursuits, athletic and otherwise. We will not allow discrimination to infiltrate our school. Thank you for sharing that voice, Aaron. I'll wait. We currently have no questions or comments in the queue. I'll wait just a few minutes in case someone is typing, at which point we will move on to new business. I do want to thank those who are speaking up. Although it is in text form, I understand that that may not be what some folks would prefer. I would prefer to be looking everyone face to face myself so we can actually see each other as we talk about this, but thank you all for sharing your opinions. We do value community input. I have a name without a question from Una. I have a question and comment from someone who does not share their name or location, from MG. Okay, I have Kathleen Warren Clinton. A recent call to action was sent via social media to the school community asking for the public to attend and ask questions in the chat during the board meeting about the role of board member Damien Green's participation in the protest of June 11. It includes a photo of Damien's wife accusing her of stealing the Black Lives Matter banner and targeting Damien for his participation in the protest. The fact is Damien did not participate in the protest. However, several other board members, including Marnie Jackson and Ann Johnson, not only promoted the counter protest, but wrote in a social media post that it was an honor to stand with 160 plus students and 200 plus community members to protect student rights in an inclusive, comprehensive, relevant education during yesterday's action, that is the protest itself. Will there be any investigation into this matter? Again, I do not want to get into a discussion on this. Thank you for sharing that concern. I understand the concern. It is my understanding that there is no investigation to be made, nor should there be in policy, to my understanding, as to what school board members do to exercise their right to free speech and assembly on their own time. We have more comments and questions from folks who have not shared their name or location. We have one from Sunny Sides. It felt strange to have adults and board members encouraging students to quote unquote rise up against parents and family and community. I see it a different way than that, but our differences in opinion are part of what makes us all valuable to this community. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Teresa Shelley from Greenbank. Current South Woodbury School District stance on vaccination of our kids without parental authority. I don't want to get into questions and answers again. This is a time for public comment. This is not a time for questions and answers and discussion. If you have that question, you are welcome to email it to us and we will be happy to answer those questions. We have comments from MG and Savannah and Annie that have no full name or location associated, and a name and location from Una without a question. If those are incoming, please let me know. Annie Phillip Langley, United Student Leaders were the organizers of the counter protest. I myself was a host. We organized as students protecting our own education. We met outside of school to make signs and organize. To claim that the counter protest was encouraged by the school is false. Thank you to everyone supporting Student Voice. Thank you, Annie, for sharing that information. Lorinda Newton from Clinton asks, when is it appropriate for a public discussion on school policies and issues? Again, I don't want to get into a back and forth conversation here. We will answer the questions in email, or we will continue to engage in discussion during board workshops, which are the first board meeting of each month, on the topics on the agenda of those. So at this point, we're getting a lot of questions coming in, and that is not, I will read them if they come in with a name and a location, but we will not be answering them. This is not what this is for. That's not part of this board meeting. This is a board meeting in public. We are receiving public comment. We want to hear from you about your opinions. Okay, this is a little confusing to me because it's coming from an account of Tim Hazelo, but it's Morgan Cooper Langley. The protest was not against students, and I think there is a misconception on that. Jacob Johnson O'Carver, I was at the last meeting and all questions were just read as public comment and glazed over as they are right now. Again, this is not the place for questions. If you have questions about the school district, please email us or comment during board workshops on the topic on the agenda that's being discussed.
May I briefly intervene to just say, I do hear that there's a desire for dialogue in our community. And when we receive questions related to topics, we notice what those topics of interest are and can agendize them. And therefore, asking a question via email is a great way to bring forward an opportunity to have it addressed during a workshop where there is an opportunity for more engagement with the community on the topic. So emailing your question, while it may seem like a one-on-one communication, it is an avenue towards community dialogue with the board on a topic of interest to several members of our community.
Thank you, Marnie. Yes, that's a very good point. That is, in fact, a fantastic way to get items on the agenda. If something comes in via email and 2 or more board members want to see it on the agenda, we will absolutely place it on the agenda. I have Teresa Shelley Greenbank. How does the biology teacher planning to explain gender? That would be a wonderful thing to email us. Email the, correct me if I'm leading this in the wrong direction, Dr. Moshe, but the building principal about, who can then discuss curriculum in that building.
Yes, that would be the appropriate way to go, is to ask the teacher. It's not only explained in biology. There are opportunities throughout K-12 schooling where students are have the opportunity to talk about various topics related to sexual health.
Thank you. Margaret King, who previously listed location, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I'm going to read the comment anyhow. The board needs to get back to meeting in person. When will that occur? There is, in fact, discussion of that coming at our board retreat at the beginning of next month. Like I said, we would love to get back into person as well. Aaron Rodriguez, I believe Langley, but I'm not sure on that, but previously provided that. I'm excited for my children to learn climate science and ethnic studies at South Woodbury High School. Thank you for this new curriculum. I know that my students are preparing to be global citizens. Thank you for sharing that. Lorinda Newton Clinton, my opinion, many of us believe you board members are hiding behind Zoom. We are not allowed our 5 minutes to present our ideas in public. If a topic is not accepted on the agenda, it will never be discussed. This is why we ask questions. I made a proposal a month or so ago and you shot it down. Damien had to tell you that the board wasn't unanimous after you sent me a message that the board decided against my proposal. After Damien contacted you, you emailed again saying that it was not a unanimous decision. If I was at a board meeting in person, I would have been able to read my proposal. If you would like to take 3 minutes to type up a proposal, Lorinda, you certainly may, and I will read it during public comment if that is your choice to how to use your public comment. We are now getting multiple comments from multiple people who have had a chance to share their opinions in public. I would like to ask the board if they are content with what we've had thus far, or if we would like to hear further public comment. I'm certainly happy to keep reading them. We seem to be repeating thoughts and ideas at this point, but, and it is, yeah.
My request would be, I'm sorry.
It is important to note that this is public comment. This is not a dialogue between ourselves at this point. We do invite that dialogue, and we will be looking for more opportunities to engage in more substantive dialogue between the district and the community in the future. Go ahead, Marnie, sorry.
Brooke, since you expressed the desire to understand what the board recommends, I would just request that we issue one more invitation for those who commented without their full name or location to send in their full name and location so that we might read their comment, and also that we read any comments that may have come in from someone who's not yet had a chance to issue their public comment in this meeting.
I am happy to read those comments that have come in with name and address, and I absolutely invite those who have not shared their name or address to share those with me, and I will read their comments. There are several more that have come in at this point. I will read those.
I kind of agree with Marnie there, Brooke. You said 45 minutes, and sometimes the characters take a while to probably load, so. Give them their
No, I'm happy to keep going with this, both Marnie and Damien. Yeah, I just think that it is not in keeping with the nature of public comment to bounce back and forth with the same people commenting, but if the board wants to read them, I'm absolutely happy to do so, and I will continue to do so since it seems like you two and myself are quite willing to do so. We'll keep going. Okay, I'm looking forward to down to the first one that is shared their name and location. Sunny Sides from Clinton. Your choice to fly the BLM and encourage an extremist social justice political movement within our public school has certainly influenced those students to act the way they did. Militant is the word that comes to mind. Angry is another. This is not normal for kids to act that way. History is repeating itself. Marxist movement includes indoctrination of children to turn on parents. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Amanda Murphy, Clinton. Thanks for being open to comments. The students planned the counter protest immediately in response to community members protesting the progress the students have achieved. I appreciate the board being supportive of this large number of students and a huge part of our community supporting them as well. Thank you for being adults who lift student voices. I also appreciate how you listen and address public comment and questions consistently. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Una Coffee, Langley. As a student will say that my experience of gender and sexuality discussions at school are student-led. Guidance is offered by educators, but often in my experience, not started by them. Thank you for sharing the direct student experience. It is very valuable to us to hear what the students are actually experiencing. Kathleen Warren, Clinton. Many parents and community members are deeply concerned about the Black Lives Matter and pride flags flying at the Southwood School. Education guidance has long been that teachers and school administrators steer clear of politics, but now teachers suddenly not only voice their political views, but demand adherence to singular worldviews such as those that support leftist ideologies such as Black Lives Matter and critical race theory. This is represented by the flags flying, which promote a political agenda. Thank you for sharing your frustration with us. It is valuable to hear that. We've run through the comments and questions that have come in with names and locations. As Damien noted, I did say 45 minutes. We're at 30 now. I will certainly wait for others to type in. And as we do, I'm going to get a drink of water. Patricia Coffey Langley. Many parents and families are fully supportive of the Black Lives Matter and the pride flags flying at the school and are proud of our school and district for supporting inclusivity and diversity. Thank you for sharing that viewpoint. Aaron Rodriguez, Langley, Southwood students and families support Black lives in the LGBTQ community. Thank you for sharing that opinion as well. Jacob Johnson, Oak Harbor. There are snapshots and flyers that prove adults began the counter protest, not the students. I also saw a flyer. I don't know what to tell you on that, Jacob. The students say that they started it. I certainly didn't. The teachers did not. I know that there was a community-led counter protest that was planned, but was abandoned when they saw one that was student-led.
Brooke, if I might just remind ourselves that we're supporting our students, and there are many students in our district who feel marginalized and feel valued because we understand that we are not all the same. We have students of color, we have students who don't, who identify as other than straight. We have students who identify as LGBTQ+. We have students who identify in all different ways. And we're a school district and all of our students matter to us, especially those who have been traditionally marginalized. So we are working to support all of our students, and the board's work that we went over at last meeting will actually delve into the data around the demographics of our district when we get back to school in August. So I think it'll be interesting conversation as we go forward and look at the actual performance of our students and their actual survey responses on both the CEE survey that we discussed last meeting, as well as the survey that we sent for around Title IX that we've been working with OSPI on. So I think this will all be good information for folks to see in our community to understand why the stance is important, to really recognize that we have many students who need to be seen, who have traditionally been unseen. So that's why we are doing what we're doing, not for any political message, but for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Moshe, for bringing that back to centering us on what we really need to be focusing on, which is the students. Thank you very much. I've got a few more here that have come in since. Kathleen Warren Clinton, public schools should remain apolitical. Kelly Wrightson, Freeland, but many parents are not supportive of these flags and banners, and if we are being truly inclusive, their opinions should matter. Jacob Johnson, Oak Harbor, it is also very concerning to see the new flag flying on the school flagpole. The fist does not give an image of peace. Sunnysides, Joe, that's fine, but you are also so focused on identity politics and your agenda. There is minimal discussion regarding academic achievement. Focus on teaching the basics and leave parenting to us. I'm going to make an assumption here on location. I believe that I'm in the clear on this. Maureen Green in Clinton. The protest was organized to protest the district, and it was never once about the students. Why do you continue to promote this agenda? Annie Phillip, Langley Southbury High School student. Students came to the school board with a request for a Black Lives Matter banner and a Pride banner, as those are two human rights issues that need to be addressed. As a student, I'm grateful for the board's response. In addition, United Student Leaders were given access to the social media accounts of adult groups to lead the counter protest. I don't understand why this point continues to be attacked. Jacob Johnson, Oak Harbor, also BLM is a political party and therefore should not be promoted at the public school. This has come up a lot, and I do want to address something here. The statement that is protected is the statement Black Lives Matter. It is not Black Lives Matter Global Network. It is the statement that Black Lives Matter. And that is the statement that is in keeping with our mission and vision statement, which were on the banner which was stolen from our fence. Kaylin Murray, Clinton, thank you for supporting all students. I am the parent of non-traditional and queer identifying students. It is important to me that my kids and all kids feel safe at school so that they can achieve academically. Kathleen Warren, Clinton, is the school district prepared for conservative families to leave the district owing to policy decisions? Good families are leaving in droves, and the would-be district getting $100 per student. If 100 students leave, that is $100,000 the district loses. Is that what the district wants? Margaret King Clinton, all lives matter is the most inclusive statement possible. Jacob Johnson O'Carber. Of course, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and the school should be giving that message. I will note again that there are a number of comments here that have come through without a name or location, and I will continue to not read those unless I get a name or location for the users. Sunnysides, please stop with your semantics. BLM is political. Come up with something original since it's originally obviously causing mega controversy. Lorinda Newton Clinton, you say that you need to support LGBTQ and BLM for the students. Some students may feel threatened by these groups. As a biblical Christian in high school in the 1980s, I was mocked for my beliefs. If I was attending school in the current environment, my experience would be worse. You need to balance all worldviews represented in the community. It's best that you drop these worldview conflicts and leave them to the families. Again, I want to emphasize that we appreciate those who have taken the time and effort to come forward and share their opinions. Whether we agree with them or not, it is valuable for us to hear them. Amanda Murphy Clinton, thank you for that clarification on Black Lives Matter, Brooke. There should be nothing political about the statement Black Lives Matter. Perhaps if people need to respond to those 3 words, they should examine their own prejudice. Thank you for sharing that. I do want to make sure that we don't get into community members addressing one another here. That's the danger of this format, although it does allow for more comments, which is appreciated. I do want to make sure that we are continuing with public comment to the board and that we're not addressing one another directly, please, and thank you. Eva Worth Clinton, is the school board more invested in the voices of students or adults? Many people are commenting that adults, community members, or parents dislike the BLM banner, but as far as I know, the majority of students are in support of it. Thank you for sharing that question. That is a question that I'm happy to talk more about if you want to address in email, but I think it's valuable for us to listen to all of the voices. We've got about 6 more minutes in that 45 minutes that I suggested at the beginning. We will continue to stay open unless there aren't any more comments that come in with names and locations. There is one that's come in acknowledging the point that a previous comment was directed at other community members, and that's why I made my blanket statement that we want comments addressed to the board, not to each other. Aaron Rodriguez, in support of students of color at South Whidbey, you are supported, you are seen, you are welcome here, you are a valuable part of our community. We will continue to stand up for Black Lives Matter. Teresa Shelley, Greenbank, please be aware both financially and emotionally that confusing young minds come with hard consequences for all of us in this life, whether you are Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, Hindu, etc. BLM is not affiliated with anything that is positive. Teachers are called to be mentors, not tormentors. Please practice wisdom and common sense with our children. I see that there are a couple of attendees who have used the raise hand function. Unfortunately, we can't address things that way. If you do have comment, please enter it into the Q&A. We have about another 4 minutes for comment, and still several comments that have come in without name or location. Debbie Wilkie Clinton. I have a concern as I deal with lots of kids in this community, as I believe with both sides, children should know exactly what they are protesting before protesting. I understand some did, but a lot did not. I was asked to go to the protest by a mother of a child on the student union to join because my daughter was graduating. I was not told exactly what was being protested as an adult. Thank you for sharing your experience. Patricia Coffey, Langley. I believe that our young people are intelligent beings who are not easily confused, and I applaud the district for providing the necessary information to help them become aware, thoughtful, and compassionate global citizens. We have about 2 minutes left, and I will continue to not share those comments who do not come in with a name or address. Aaron Wilkie, Freeland. How will you support students as some begin to feel marginalized due to their faith and conservative views? That is certainly something we will continue to monitor and look at, because we do want to support all possible marginalized groups. Maureen Green of Clinton. Does the district support the United Student Leaders Group? Who is the advisor? Is it okay for them to accuse people of stealing? Again, this is not a place for debate and discussion. The district has met with the United Student Leaders monthly for a while. They provide valuable feedback on what some portion of the students are experiencing. Sunnysides, Clinton, thank you for taking my multiple comments. I wanted to let you know that there are several parents who aren't very active, like I have had to become, are not comfortable sending their kids to South Bay School District because of the way you guys are going in an extreme and, dare I say, toxic environment that undermines family values and our American values and culture. Kathleen Warren, Clinton. Black Lives Matter Incorporated has kept racial issues at the forefront of the American consciousness for several years, and now critical race theory is putting race at the center of education. These doctrines pit whites against minorities, wealthy against the poor, and the heteronormative against gay. Teaching the ideas to our children and promoting them in or outside the classroom creates division rather than unity. And we are at our time. That's the last question that we'll be taking. I do want to note that as Dr. Moshe mentioned, what we're doing with our equity and our equity issues is to try to remove barriers from between students and the best education that they can receive. This is about identifying, our efforts are about identifying places where we can do better for the students in our schools. It's not about making someone feel bad for the color of their skin. It's not about making someone feel bad because they're straight or member of the LGBTQIA+ community, anything like that. It is about removing barriers between students and education. Thank you all for sharing your opinions. It is as I've said several times, it's valuable for us to hear from the community. And thank you for taking the time to join us in this meeting and to share your comments with us.
Hey, Brooke, you did have one more question that clocked in at 7:44 that you won't be able to answer because we're not answering questions. But if you could read that, then that would finish.
Yep.
finish
Ah,
this.
yes. Thank you, Anne. Maureen Green Clinton, who is the advisor? I assume from United Student Leaders. And again, that's it is my understanding that this is a group outside of the school, so their advisors are not relevant to the school district itself, or are not determined by the school district itself. Okay, we will now move on to new business, since we have no unfinished business. First new business item, Memorandum 2021-39, approval of the classroom furniture for the South Whidbey Elementary School. Do I have a motion in regards to this point of new business?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or comments on this item? Okay, hearing no discussion or comments, all those in favor of approving Memorandum 2021-39, approval of classroom furniture for the South Whidbey Elementary School, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2021-39 has been approved. Next, we move on to Memorandum 2021-40, approval of the high school convection ovens griddle replacement. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions on this memorandum? No questions or comments or discussion items. So all those in favor of approving Memorandum 2021-40, approval of the high school convection ovens griddle replacement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Memorandum 2021-40, approval of the high school convection ovens griddle replacement has been approved. Memorandum 2021-41, approval of the South Whidbey Elementary School North and South Campus sound systems. Do I have a motion in regards to this?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
It's been moved and seconded and thirded. Is there any discussion to be had on this point? I'd just like to note that I think it's wonderful that we're replacing something that was installed when I was a student there. Because that's been a while. No further comments, questions, or discussion.
Well, if it truly is original, it goes back to my day, Brooke.
Yes, yeah, the South Campus, absolutely, yeah. So all those in favor of Memorandum 2021-41, approval of the South Whidbey Elementary School North and South Campus sound systems, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, Memorandum 2021-41, approval of the South Whidbey Elementary School North and South Campus sound systems has been approved. Memorandum 2021-42, approval of the school board sound systems. Do I have a motion on this?
Move to approve.
It has been moved.
Second.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions or comments on this?
I just want to point to what this might make possible as we return to in-person board meetings. And so I'm grateful to see the technology upgrades in that space to address the desire of the board and the public to begin again to meet in person as soon as possible and feasible.
I also suggest that we modify it. Brooke brought up earlier to me, we will likely have 2 student reps, not just one. So I'm going to suggest that we, when we purchase this, we actually get 1 more microphone in the event that we do have 2 student reps. So that'll give us enough of a sound system.
Thank you, Dr. Moshe. Yes, I was going to wait and see if anyone had any other comments, but yeah, that was something that jumped out to me, that we need one more mic. I'm curious if we have any indication on, or that this is I mean, we needed to upgrade the sound system in there for a while to.
Yeah. Christy, can you bring up the other attachment and we can walk through for the board?
Thank you.
So actually, I want to give all the credit to Ian. He did all of the research and put the presentation together so that you would have an idea. Christy, next slide. So again, the real issue with what we wanted to do is all about sound. And you knew this from a while ago when the board had talked to us about wanting to do a live stream of board meetings long before the pandemic. And the cost was more prohibitive than it is now. We've come to a place where we can actually support it. We've learned a lot through the pandemic about what does and does not work. Next slide. So it'll be 8 microphones and a handheld mic for the public, and a pan-tilt zoom camera, which we have in several of our conference rooms. And essentially, it responds to voice. So the camera will move to the voice automatically. And we've been using that in a couple of our conference rooms. So we're pretty confident that that will be effective. Next slide. Again, the microphone's pretty standard. Push to mute as opposed to unmute. So, next slide. Wireless charger station, keep going. And this is the camera. And again, we've used it and we have this camera. So we'll be able to install this. Again, the real issue was the sound. And when we looked at the camera the last time, it was very inexpensive, but it also wasn't going to give you the quality of sound for the community who would still choose to attend remotely. Next slide. So again, it would give you, as a board, the opportunity to see the folks who choose to join you, and they're able to see you. And again, as I said, existing knowledge, because we're already using the system. Next slide. This is a draft of a way to do it. If spacing allows for more in the room, there obviously would be more in the room. And the AV closet or the room next door could be the overflow, but we would be in the room. We would need to set it up in such a way. Right now, this picture is spacing everyone. But if we left the boardroom as it is with the board seats as they are, it would still work just fine. So I would recommend that we purchase this. The sound system itself will enhance whatever we do, and we can use it in other spaces if needed as well. It would be, kept in the boardroom, but certainly if there were another use for it, we'd be able to move it. And I believe that's it, Christy. So you can take that, go back to the original. There you go.
Thank you, Dr. Moshe, for sharing that. And thank you, Mr. Turner, for preparing that and for doing all the research. It's pretty clear that this is a significantly better system than the OWL proposal that was suggested as basically an immediate solution. So I think it's valuable that we can do something that can work long-term, because I think we've all seen during the last year and a half how valuable it is to have people able to attend from home online. Any other comments or questions or concerns from board members?
I'm curious if the additional microphone for a second student rep would be able to be accommodated within the scope of this proposal, or if we need to suggest an amendment in order to make that acquisition possible.
We could certainly increase the contingency by $2,000. Just to make sure that that we're within.
I was
That
going to
would-
suggest including an amendment for an additional mic
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
motion,
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
just to make it perfectly clear. Okay, are there any other comments or questions? All right, then we have a motion on the table to approve this. At Marnie's suggestion, I would like to add the amendment to that to include one additional microphone.
I'll move to approve the proposal with the amendment of an additional microphone.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving memorandum 2021-42, approval of the school board room sound systems with the amendment that we'll be purchasing one additional microphone for a second student rep, please say aye.
Aye.
But
Any-
technically, you're supposed to do the amendment and then we vote on the final.
Sorry, let's do things proper. All those in favor of attaching the amendment to include one additional microphone, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay. And then we go through, thank you, Damien, for the Robert's Rules refresher. And then we will go through and approve the memorandum with the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay. Memorandum 2021-42, approval of the school board room sound systems with the amendment of an additional mic has been approved. Memorandum 2021-43, our last point of new business this evening, approval of the update to policy 3520, student fees, fines, charges, student activities. Do I have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any comments or discussion? I believe that this was simply adding guardians in and changing some pronouns to there to be more inclusive.
Thank you for making those changes.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, all those in favor of approving memorandum 2021-43, approval of this update to policy 3520, student fees, fines, and charges, student activities, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, memorandum 2021-43, approval of the update to policy 3520, student fees, fines, charges, student activities has been approved. We are done with our new business and move on to reports. Mr. Poolman, financial and enrollment report.
Good evening. So this is our school board report. It'll run through May 31st. We'll start with enrollment. June is the final month that we actually count students for the school district, and it will come in our June apportionment that will show what our actual apportionment for the year, really the previous year, ends up big. Because as remember, we count September through June, and they adjust our apportionment to our student enrollment, and apportionment, for those that are unaware, is our funding that we receive from the state. So we will know on June 30th what our actual apportionment was for the school year that ends this August. Our June 1st count was 1,170 student FTE, And you can see that is an increase from the previous month of about 3.6 student FTEs. And by the building level, it broken down K4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. So we're ending the year with about 1167 FTE. We had budgeted about 1224. So you can see that from a budget standpoint, we're down roughly 57 FTE. The majority of that is at the kindergarten level. We had a lot fewer kindergarten students come to school due to the pandemic than we would normally see. So that's the majority of it. And if you have questions, I'm going to try to be a little brief tonight because I'm trying to recover from a cold and my throat's real sore, but I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along. So basically, if we look at the bottom part, we also have ALE, Alternative Learning Environment. We have 8.82 students, which was our average for the year that attended through the Spokane Virtual Academy. Next year, it looks like that number is going to be much larger. Initial registration puts it at about 53. So we have a lot of students and families that are choosing to go with the new alternative program being offered at the elementary school. The CTE program at the high school, their average for the year ends up being 57.6, and that's the circle that's in blue on each of these. And special education ended up with about 189 students in their count. Upper right corner, the red is the current year enrollment, the blue is last year's, and you can see, last September we started at 1274. This year we started at 1183. We ended last year at 1266 and we 1170. So you can see there's about a 66 FTE difference than what we had last year. Some of that was actually planned for. The lower right corner graph shows what we anticipated our change would have been from the previous year. And we had budgeted for enrollment to drop by 2.1%. It actually ended up being 6.9. So it was a little bit of a difference. So it isn't like we didn't plan for some of this, it just not all of it. Financial report, this is through May 31st. And again, our financial year starts September 1, runs through August 31st. So we are 3/4 of the way through our school year. Would anticipate at this point that our revenue and expenditures would be roughly in the 70 to 75% range. Revenues at 74.3 and expenditures are at 66.4. So we are spending less money based upon modality of the education that was provided in the current year. The one thing I do want to point out, and there's actually two things. On the lower right hand side, you'll see what our revenue year to date looks like. And you'll notice from 16, 17 to 18, 19, revenue was growing. And then in the last 2 years, revenue started to decline. And this is not unexpected or new. We've been talking about this for a while. And as we talked about budget, we talked about regionalization and how the change to the funding model at the state level. It was actually a disadvantage to South Woodby School District. They started with a high regionalization of 24% and then decreased it by 2% per year. So when you decrease the funding per student and you decrease the number of students, you're going to see declining revenue. On the lower left corner, you can see that the light blue is the current year revenue, and we knew it was lower, fewer kids, a lot of factors, regionalization, except when we get to May, and you're going to see that our revenue is the same as it was for the last 2 years, and there's a very specific reason for that. And the reason is stabilization. OSPI worked with the legislature knowing that districts were going to be financially disadvantaged because of the pandemic. And districts across the state have seen enrollment decline. And we look at the ESD that we're in, and the schools and then the, Island King, Snohomish, Whatcom County, Skagit County, they were all down anywhere, 99%. There's one district that didn't go down, but anyways, most districts are down in the 5 to 9% range. So it happened across the state. So the legislature came up with a funding formula and they called it stabilization. And based upon, a bunch of factors, they determined how much each school district would receive above the funding formula that we normally have. And for South Woodby, that enrollment was $326,000. So as we talked about our apportionment earlier in the year and enrollment, we were looking at being down, potentially $700,000. We're getting 326,000 back. So they basically tried to cut that in half of what the loss would be for districts. The other one is transportation stabilization on the bottom, and it's $176,000. The line above is a transportation operations. This is the money we received to run our school buses, and it's predicated upon the number of miles we drive and the number of kids that are on our school bus. Well, in a remote environment, you're not going to have a lot of kids on school buses. So we saw a number that should have been 856,000 be cut to 456,000. And that was a real concern because as we move back into full transportation, you're not going to have the funds to do that. So between those two, we were looking at approximately $500,000 additional one-time funds that we received in May. So that allowed our revenue for the month to be very similar to what it was in the previous year. Year-to-date expenditures, our payroll costs are a little over 68%, and our non-employed costs are about 54%, and that's supplies services. You see, totally we're at about 66%, 75% of the way through the year. So our expenditures are down from where they would normally be in a normal year. And there's very specific reasons for that. If you look at the payroll, you can see payroll has grown annually, anticipated it would this year. But because of the shortened number of school days with students, transportation costs, the fact that we don't have substitute for a lot of our workforce going on in a remote environment, our expenditures are about $750,000 less year to date in payroll. The non-employee, the right-hand side, the MSOC costs, supply services and travel is also down, but it's also a trend we're seeing anyways. Because as we watch payroll increase, the non-employee costs have had to decrease over time. So if we add encumbrances, which is, we know we have contracts to continue to pay out through the end of the year. We have things on order that we haven't paid for yet. Those are encumbrances. We are at about 90% of our budget year to date, totally about 91% for payroll and about 79% for non-employee costs. And in the bottom is just a comparison. Our accounting system for the state breaks things down in what they refer to as objects. And it's basically salaries of certificated staff, classified staff, the benefits that go with those salaries, and then supplies, services, and travel. And you can see by looking on the right-hand side that the large blue, red, and green are the salaries and the benefits, and the blue and purple are the other costs. So you can see where the majority of our money goes in an organization like this. Just some quick, 3-year trend data. The one that's really different is classified staff. You see that blue line? The green line was 2 years ago. The red line was last year, and we would have anticipated in a normal year the blue line to be the highest line that we have. But because we did, reduce costs because there was no students on Wednesdays, reduced transportation, all those type of things, you'll see that it's been running below the average 2 years ago, and that's where most of that reduction in salary costs are. Until we started to bring kids back, we started to ramp back up. You can see that that blue line started to increase and is back to where it normally would be. We'll continue through that. So it's just been, a change in how we're doing things. Services, travel also, below where they normally would be. The one service bump, you'll see that there's always a high jump in March or April. That's just a timing of semi-annual costs, such as our insurance costs that are, $260,000. We pay half in the fall, half in the spring. Sometimes the invoices are a different month apart, but they're very similar. But you still see it's down from, the green a couple years ago. And then just the bottom one is, our expenditures by month. And you can see that traditionally it's been running below where it had been, but now it's jumping back up as we have kind of launched into a more full-time environment. Budget status report, just a review. We've already seen where our revenue comes from and where our expenditures go. And just another way of looking at expenditures. And this is what they refer to as the program expenditures. So whether it's our regular basic education, our special education, BOC, grants, community services, support services, et cetera, it gives you an idea where we're spending our money and then what our ending fund balance is. This is just an asset and liability sheet, so it comes up to the same fund balance, but it tells you where our cash resides, where our liability resides, and if the money's restricted or reserved, or what we have to do with it and that type of thing. We have that for each of the funds that we do have. And just quickly, we do have funds other than general fund that we talk about that predominantly. We have capital projects fund. We have brought in basically 100% of our revenue because it is levy funded. We get half in the fall and half in roughly April and May. And we've expended 721,000 of that. So we have quite a bit left in the fund balance, but there are several things that are still encumbered, and there are projects during the summer that will use some of that. Anything that isn't used is rolled over, and you can see we normally have about $1 million that rolls from year to year, depending on when projects are in the process. And in this past year, projects have really slowed down. It's taken a lot longer to get work done. Debt service fund has $78,000 in it roughly, and we will have a payment June 1st, which will use the majority of that up. The ASB has been fairly inactive this year with not a lot of student activities because it is the Associated Student Body Fund. They raised about $8,000 in revenue and spent about $17,000 in expenditures. Transportation Vehicle Fund currently at $211,000. We have ordered 2 large school buses. They are encumbered and expected to be here in August. In August, we also receive a payment from OSBI for the depreciation of our other school buses, which will pay for the 2 buses that we have and pretty much use all the money in that fund. And then the Private Purpose Trust Fund is money that has been donated in the district's name for the use of scholarships. And so it's a fairly large fund that we use the interest to provide scholarships on an annual basis to our graduating seniors. Not going to spend any time on budget tonight because our next meeting is July 14th, and we will spend a lot of time on budget. I will have a complete budget presentation for all the funds that we budget for, which is general fund, capital projects, Associated Student Body, debt service, and transportation. We'll also do what OSBI refers to as the F195F, which is a 4-year budget projection and a 4-year enrollment projection. We won't spend a lot of time on those because it's really hard to get out 2 or 3 years and project where things are going to be. Because one, you never know what changes at the legislative session, and student enrollment's another one, but it is a requirement and we will go through that process. Any questions I could answer for you? If not, I will stop sharing and return control to Christy.
Thank you, as always, Mr. Pullman, and save your voice. You're going to need it July 14th because that is a board workshop where we will be accepting questions and discussion from the community as well.
Yes.
On the budget.
Thanks for the comprehensive update.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Pullman. And now to you, Dr. Moshe, for the superintendent's report, if you have anything. You're muted. Yep.
Okay, just wanted to take the opportunity to let everybody know that our summer programs are underway, that we're supporting through Readiness to Learn, and there's also going to be academic support happening this summer. The biggest celebration is I want to take a minute and really thank John Patton and his staff for the outstanding in-person graduation celebration that we all were able to attend and participate in. I think it was probably one of the best I've ever attended. Students and families were excited. It was a great setup and a great event. Our school year ended pretty calmly. It was probably the most difficult school year most anyone has experienced in terms of our workforce. And we're all taking a much needed break. And I would hope that the school board gets that same opportunity. We have 3 weeks between now and our next meeting. So it would be a good opportunity to take a breather. We are planning for regular face-to-face full-time instruction in the fall. We still don't know what the parameters are from the Department of Health, but it we're in a good trend. So I'm hopeful that we will have fewer restrictions, but we won't know much until August at this point. That's really all I had. I wish you all a great few weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Moshe. We now move on to board report. I want to start us off talking about our retreat, which is in 3 weeks. These are traditionally during the daytime, and then we break bread together and have dinner, and then attend the school board meeting afterwards. But since we have not discussed the timing on that, I wanted to get us all together virtually to do so. That is July 14th. It's my hope that we can do something from around noon. I think that's what we discussed. Around noon until dinner time, take that break for dinner, and then move on to the board workshop after that. Thoughts, ideas, conflicts?
Brooke, my calendar initially had us at 2 o'clock. Are we suggesting adjusting to 12, or did I just miss that?
Let me see what I may have that off. What would folks prefer? Oh,
Just
yes.
a reminder, you're also meeting in August.
I did have the suggestion of 2 to 5:30. Yes, you're right.
I'm not crazy. Yes.
Nope.
Okay.
And just as a note, the board retreat is a meeting in public.
Yes, it's typically just the board's meeting in public, though. The public is welcome to watch, but the board typically uses that time for its own retreat.
Yeah, this will be our opportunity to talk about a number of things amongst ourselves, and then we can discuss some of them later on, and then bring anything to vote as we need to later at a business meeting. So there will be time for the public to comment on anything that we discuss later, either during the public session comment period of a business meeting or during a board workshop if one of those items is on the agenda.
Thanks for that clarification, Brooke. I'll just chime in to say that the timing of 2 to 5:30 p.m. does sound amenable to me.
Does that work for everyone else? I'm seeing nods from Anne, thumbs up from Anne. Andrea, Marnie, Damien, does that work for you? More or less? Okay, it's acceptable.
Yeah, I have some things that I'm going to have to do here soon in California, but we'll see how that pans out. So
Okay.
when it actually happens, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Okay, so
I'm
we will
hearing that you're starting at 2 then, and you want dinner, and we're doing this in person.
yes,
Okay,
yeah, that is the goal.
okay. So we'll provide a refreshment then when we get started, and then bring in dinner. And you'll take that an hour break from 5:30 to 6:30
Yep.
for dinner.
Yep.
And then start the meeting at 6:30. Just want to make sure we have the logistics so that we can be ready.
Good to nail down all those details. Thank you. Okay, are there any other board comments or reports that board members would like to make?
Brooke, I just had one question. Are we then anticipating that our sound system and everything will be installed so that that board meeting at 6:30 will happen in public and everybody can join in, or would we be remote for the 6:30 meeting, whether we're on site or not?
I believe that the intention is to use the board retreat as a test to see how we can live stream things. Dr. Moshe, correct me if I'm wrong. Because
I don't believe we were planning to live stream the retreat. But again, if that's what the board wants, we are subject to the order, right? So if it can come in 3 weeks and we can actually get us set up, otherwise we may be in person, and just live streaming, and Zooming. I mean,
Yeah.
but definitely bring your computer, but we may, if we can't pull off the system by then, we'll punt.
And we will make sure that we are in accordance with all logistical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's important for the public to know that other districts are doing that, where people will be on a campus site and they will be zooming in through a computer, and that's
And there is
that's
one
better.
caveat that may change it, and that is if on June 30th, the governor changes the rules around how boards and other public entities have to hold their meetings and allow for the virtual. Again, just to reiterate, I know folks are frustrated, as is the board, that we all want to be in public, but the restrictions on how to do that were pretty prohibitive. Some districts were able to do it. We haven't been able to do it, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I know the board meetings that I've been attending, they've all still stayed virtual.
Mhm.
For the
Yeah,
same around
and that
legis-
is the current ruling from the governor, the current restrictions
If,
the governor
and
has placed
if
on.
folks are interested in the specific rules, we've posted them a number of times, but you can go directly to the Washington State School Board Director's site, WASDA, WSSDA. And there's a full explanation of how districts, what we have to meet in terms of the criteria and what the rules are based on the governor's order. So that's what we're following.
Anything else about the retreat? Okay. I would like to thank the high school administration and staff and Dr. Moshe for quick work on bringing down the defaced banner and on arranging for replacements for both of those banners that were stolen or defaced. I think it's very important that the district not be seen and not give in to vandals and thieves.
The community has been exceptionally generous. They've donated all of the funds to the banner maker, so directly. And those banners are being replaced and others are being printed to go along with what we discussed at the last board meeting that the students have proposed in terms of rotating banners. And there's also a banner, it's a flag actually, that Mr. Patton received from an anonymous donor from San Francisco. It just says from an admirer in San Francisco, and they must have heard the situation and they sent a pride flag. And it is flying under the American flag at the high school.
Which is in keeping with the suggestions from the students on what to recognize each month.
Exactly. We have a pride banner coming for the month of June because it's Pride Month. So that will go up along with the Black Lives Matter banner. Once we receive them, they're being printed. And then August, the students want to put up a banner around civility. And as I outlined in the last meeting, there'll be one for each month. Mostly based on what the federal recognitions are, but the students came up with the plan. So.
Burke, I just wanted to just take a moment and congratulate all of our graduates, but also to acknowledge that we had 7 valedictorians who did a co-speech at the graduation that I just really appreciated, and I am excited to hear how they move forward in their pursuits. And we had some very accomplished graduates who were going to some very prestigious schools and prestigious schools. And I am just really excited to see what all of our graduates do.
And I'd
Yes.
like to give a quick shout out to the South Whitby Community Center, which is our former middle school campus. Big doings there. Summer fun, like Joe said. Lots of kiddos are coming back on campus. They're masked and safe, but they are having a blast doing all kinds of different activities. If you haven't driven past the gymnasium yet and seen that mural in progress, it is outstanding and it's beautiful. And I got to help with the community painting day. And there were kids there as young as 4, and there were wise elders from the community, and there was everybody in between. And we all got to paint by numbers with Jeremy, the artist. And it was fantastic. It was the most fun day. So there are so many glorious, wonderful, inclusive things happening in our community. That community center houses services, it houses education, it houses entertainment, it houses our Readiness to Learn program, which helps our kiddos, receive educational justice. It houses our CARES Coalition, which we got a presentation from Lori Johnson here a couple weeks ago. They're currently working with the Montana Institute on a virtual learning and transformative leadership, and they can pass that on to all those other service groups and become a model for that. It's an amazing place, and just driving past it and being on that campus is a joy. So I would say, everybody drive down Camino, slow down if you have to, go parade speed and look at that mural. It's amazing.
I'll second that. It's an amazing piece of artwork, and the way that the artist and his apprentice have wrapped in community involvement is going to make family memories for families for years to come. I just also wanted to give a shout out to our band director, high school band director, Chris Harshman, and the student musicians who performed at the graduation. I thought the quality of the musicianship and the song selection and the size and professionalism of the ensembles was just such an exemplary highlight for the program. So thanks, Chris, for all the continued excellent work, and thank you to our student musicians, including some really talented seniors. I hope they stick with music for all their lives.
I want to
Brooke,
build.
I have some housekeeping I need to take care of, if that's okay. There's 3 issues that I need to just address. I don't expect conversation unless anybody really wants to get involved in conversation, but I do need to address some issues. And so the first one pertains to RCW 28A 320.128. And under item 4, it says a person who intentionally and in bad faith or maliciously knowingly makes a false notification of a threat under this section is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable under RCW 9A20.021. And at the last meeting, I brought up reevaluating or looking at the notice of threats of violence or harm policy number 4314. And Director Jackson made a valid point that she doesn't think that we need to review it. And in reviewing that, I realized that we did do that review in February of 2020. And following a few weeks after that review in February 2020, we actually had a notification of threat on March 6, 2020, in which everybody was notified, and a sheriff's department was called, and a 7th grader was arrested for a threat of burning down the school on a social media website. So because of that, I go back to the RCW 28A 320.128, and it's item 3, where school districts, school district boards of directors, school officials, and school employees providing notice in good faith as required and consistent with the board's policies, not procedures, adopted under this section are immune from any liability arising out of any such notification. And that is why I prefer to remove my association from this board policy, because I do not feel that we followed board policy, and I'm very disappointed in that. The second item that I have to address is, do you want to have discussion?
I'd just like to note on that the notification of threats procedure at the very least, and perhaps policy, is going to be on the agenda for our July 14th board workshop following the retreat.
Well, thank you, Brooke, for bringing that up. The next issue is I spent some time trying to research. I know that we have our social justice club and so forth, but I couldn't find anything that related to having a United Student Leaders organization to the school. So I think you kind of verified that today, which I appreciate. But even so with that, I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's posted on the United Student Leaders website. And with that, most of it is stuff that, you know, if they want to ask my wife something, they certainly can. She's an individual. She, you know, she actually is Native American. She is Native Mexican from Zacatecas. She is a multicultural. She speaks Jewish. She speaks Spanish. She's a world of information. And if anything that came from the protest, I was kind of maybe hoping for when I found out it was happening, was that a conversation could take place between multicultural people and have a great dialogue. Sadly, that did not occur. But what did occur was, and this coming out, and I can handle all this stuff, you know, asking me questions and everything else, but what was Maureen and or Damien's role in the stealing and vandalizing of the banners? Well, that to me is libel, slander with the intent to defame our characters. And I'm glad to know that this is not something that's promoted by the school district. So if there's any other questions about that, I think in all full fairness, I'm trying to look for the word that's I usually use, full disclosure, I am talking to an attorney regarding this because I don't think this was appropriate. The next thing I have is that I enjoyed graduation. I thought it was very well put together and so forth. Some of the speakers did address controversial issues. One being maybe giving medical advice. I don't think that I would tell somebody if 5,500 people had died this year through airline accidents that flying in the airlines would be safe. So I don't necessarily believe yet that the FDA has completely approved vaccines as being safe, but that's a controversial issue. But when I listen to one say, if you don't like what's being taught in public schools, take your kid out of public school. Well, that was like an epiphany, because we've been decreasing in students now for 10 years. And as we lose students, we are losing $10,400 a year per student. And those students are, of course, taking off and going to private institutions or maybe even other public institutions. But with that, this whole idea of we're losing the funding, we're losing teachers, we're losing program, we're not growing. And I think that we have to sincerely look at what is behind this issue. And then we take that even further and we go, okay, well, the state doesn't give us funding, and the state also doesn't give funding for these other private schools for that. So maybe it's a state issue that the state's just trying to pocket money and send kids to other schools so that they don't have to make it their paramount deal here. And of course, we don't have child vouchers and of course, taxpayers who are truly the customers, since they're paying the bill. The students are our product. We produce good quality students, but the people of this state don't get to have the ability to say, no, actually, I want my tax dollars to go to this private school or this public school or anything else. It's already kind of predetermined, but as we lose students and they go elsewhere, that money is being absorbed by the state to be used somewhere else. And I really, the epiphany is like starting to really hit, because then it's, okay, how many times in the last 10 years have I heard that we cannot compete against these private schools academically and athletically, such as Cedar Park Christian, Bellevue Christian, King's, Archbishop Murphy, O'Day, whatever private school it may be. So I'm like, if we want to grow and want to truly be diverse, we need to have a direct and meaning conversation about what it takes to bring those students back to the public school. And then the sex education thing that's kind of going around, I get that. I understand that people can opt out. And I understand that people have their issues. And I got to thinking about that, and I was like, well, we have a lot of issues right now similar to sex education with guns, and guns create actually they kill a lot of people, but is it the people killing people or is it guns? So why don't we look at having, as a state level, age appropriate gun safety? Would that help just like it helps with parents with sex education with their children? So I bring that up because I start thinking, okay, all this stuff in the political matters that are happening here, the NRA is also a political action committee. They lobby for their stuff. You know, next thing we know, we can be driving in Eastern Washington and seeing support the NRA on a school tennis court fence and everything else. And I think I've stated pretty much from the get-go that I am a very neutral person. I've spent most of my life in the middle between a company and the clients. And I think that neutral ground is a good place to be. And I hope that we can get there, but I just wanted some time to clarify those issues that I'm having and make sure that I relieve myself of any liability with that specific board policy 4314, I believe it was. But anyway, thank you for letting me clean that up. And thank you, Mr. Patton, for a wonderful presentation of band and graduates outside without the rain. You had a blessing from Neptune, I guess, might be the answer. I don't know, somebody, whoever the rainmaker is, but anyway, thank you for that.
Two notes I'd like to put in there, Damien. The first is we've actually had declining enrollment for 21 years, since 2000, I believe it is. So it's been a significantly longer process than what you mentioned. And second is that I'm disappointed that you continue to refer to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in what you're referring to, but I'm disappointed that you continue to refer to the Black Lives Matter banner as a political action committee banner, considering that you've been part of this board and that you've heard numerous times that this is a statement that has been approved by the Federal Office of Special Counsel, that this is not in regards to a political action committee, that this is a statement that Black Lives Matter, that this is a crucial statement for our students of color.
Black lives do matter, Brooke. Asian lives matter. Native American Indian lives matter. There's a lot more to it that could have been from a conversation from that, rather than just singling out one ethnic group. Now, I understand that that controversy is bringing forward some other attention to other groups, but if you Google, is Black Lives Matter a political action committee? It is, regardless of what the special White House counsel says. And I don't have that stuff handy with me, and I have read it, and I don't disagree with anybody on the board that Black Lives Matter. I'm sure you guys all agree that all lives matter. The problem that I have is that we have chosen to display it. And I understand that you also believe that it comes from the students. And I have stated in the past that we are the educators. You know, it's great to listen to students and take their input, but we still have to be adults and do the teaching. And so we can have this discussion all day long. I just am stating, I don't agree with it. I don't like the controversy. And I think it's very divisive within our community. And if you think it's not being divisive in our community, then we wouldn't have had what we had here a couple of weeks ago take place.
Damien, may I add a couple of notes? I participated earlier today in a program offered by the WASA, the Washington Association of School Administrators, and it was an opportunity to learn about how to talk about equity and in a divided community. And this was offered to all Washington State school administrators and board members because this is not only a statewide but a nationwide issue. We live in a time of polarization. The declining enrollment is something that we just heard about from Dr. Pullman, and as Brooke pointed out, it has been going on for 20 years in this district. So to point to the way this district approaches discussions around racial equity as the cause of declining enrollment, for instance, I feel it might be correlation rather than causation. And I just want to invite you, there's an opportunity on Monday next week at 5 p.m. to participate in this same educational webinar that I just benefited from. They provided a really balanced look at how to have these tough conversations, how to bridge divides in communities, and the sex education component and the equity component that we are teaching in South Sudbury School District is in accordance with a state mandate around what public schools need to offer to all students to prepare all students for this world. And as opposed to educating on gun safety, for instance, that has not been mandated. I'm presuming that should Washington State see fit to mandate that public schools needed to require gun safety training, we would find a way to address that in the way that best served our students. But I feel bringing in such an example in contrast to something like comprehensive sex education or equity and inclusion in education, it's kind of apples and oranges, Damien, and I'm just inviting you to take the opportunity to learn. And this particular webinar I can personally recommend. So if you'd like me to email you the information to sign up, I'd be happy to do so.
No, I wanted to attend today myself. I know that it's there, and I actually look forward to attending. But the reason I guess I didn't really clarify locally, the Island Christian Academy, I was ran into Matt Chambers, and he was able to tell me that the enrollment of Island Christian Academy was 109 at the end of June, and registered for this fall is 150. That's an increase of 41. So I understand, Brooke, that this has been going on a long time, but I'm also trying to look at what other reasons might be applying to student decline in enrollment. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying to have an open conversation about it and address it and see what we can do to grab those back. If you don't want to grab them back, that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly acceptable. You know, if the majority isn't concerned about it, I understand that. I'm just saying that, you know, it's great to have conversations and to actually look at things and go, why is it really truly happening?
Damien, I'm feeling disappointed. I hear you, and I know it was your turn to be heard. I'm disappointed that we were leaving this meeting on a tone of goodwill with the face of the kids at the forefront. And now here we are, redebating the same issues that we debated that we heard during public comment. We're rehashing things that we all know are divisive. And now we're leaving this meeting on a tone that doesn't feel satisfactory, that doesn't feel congratulatory, and that doesn't celebrate our kids. So it has nothing to do with data. It has everything to do with my feelings. I was so proud of us for being able to leave this meeting on a positive note and leave our community with a positive tone. And we can continue to discuss the things that feel important to you in the moment. They feel important to a lot of people. But I have to say, I have disappointment that this is the way our meeting is ending.
Welcome to the world of governance.
Well, I think my frustration comes from the fact of, you know, Damien, a year ago, we were sitting here on this board when the students brought the request to us. The board voted and you were part of that vote. And I understand your perspective is that you said that Jo can put what she wants to on school grounds, but you voted yes. You voted yes, and you gave her that perspective. And with the Black Lives Matter banner, you did.
I believe that vote was.
No, I did not. I said it's Jo's decision, and so did Charlie, and that's where we stopped.
The other piece is around the sex ed comprehensive policies. You also vote yes on that.
Yes, they're state mandated. And I said, yes, I understand that we can opt out. I was just saying, I understand why people have frustration. And I used an example as to why, because it's really important. I think these people get to have the ability to be heard. So if they can't be heard, I'll help speak for them because I am part of the community. And so I'm just making sure, I'm making sure that they're being heard.
The frustration comes from, we have a discussion, we make a vote, and we move forward. and then it continues to come up on your end. And so I am just asking and encouraging you that if you don't support it or if you don't stand with it, please vote no. And then you can have these conversations. But my frustration comes from knowing that we've had conversations where you have voted yes, and then you still want to debate it, and it feels as though it's backtracking.
I'm glad we all got to say something there. Thank you, Damien, for bringing up these matters. I'd actually like to go back to something that Anne said and then use that to go back to something Andrea said, that I am incredibly proud of those 7 valedictorians as well, Andrea. That's awesome that they all maintained a 4.0 average through this. I'd also like to give a shout out to those students who are taking non-traditional, non-college, non-4-year paths, those who are going to trade schools, those who are going to community colleges, those who are going straight into the workforce, that we are and should be proud of all of our students who are graduating, whichever course that they take. Military is another good option that I think I just want to appreciate all of the choices that our graduating seniors make. And hopefully we can end this meeting on that appreciative note towards all of our seniors inclusive. We will now move into executive. I will momentarily adjourn this session and we will move on to executive session to review performance of a public employee and to review negotiations. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for speaking your minds. Thank you for sharing your opinions and bringing those to the board. This meeting is now adjourned.
Brooke, are we sending out a link for that?
Yes, we need to get a link for that.
Yes,
Okay.
Christy, can you resend that link? Thank you.
Thank you.